For the next presentation, I have to announce another speaker than in the program, Herbert Wurster. He replaces Hannelore Putz. He's an archivist and the director of the archives of the Bishop of Passau.
Dear colleagues, thank you for this occasion. I will present you sacramental registers based upon the experience of our archive. We have about 800,000 pages digitized and online under open access. Sacramental registers were established by the Council of Trient as part of the process of the renovation of the Catholic Church after the Reformation. The basis of our documents has grown over the centuries. We have no registers from the early period of the 16th century, but the tradition of registers began slowly in the late 16th century, and what we now has grown through the 18th century. You see on this picture we are still in the 18th century, in the early 18th century, and there are white gaps of our documentation. Some of the gaps are due to fire, war, and so on, where parishes which had older registers lost them through, let's say, World War II or the Austrian War of Succession in the 18th century. But that's the situation. We have nearly complete documentation from the middle of the 18th century. Now, how do registers look like? That's one of our older registers. As you can see, very often the script is very fine and easily readable, at least from a human point of view. And as you can see from the point of view of layout, also very precise. That's the case very often, as you can see from this detailed picture of a matrimonial entry of the late 17th century. As you can see, we have this is one entry, top line year, next line month, continuing down to the date of the day, and then we have the bridegroom, and the first is the priest, and then the first one shown with red is the bridegroom, and the next person, this under sponsor, is the bride. So we have a very clear definition of what to expect in this entry. And then we have, as you can see, a clear layout. The testers, these are the witnesses of the marriage. So again, we have a clear distinction what to expect in this entry. As you can see, the same is true in other registers, not only in this special case that I have shown you. So we quite often know what to expect, even in such a text. Again, matrimonial register. Here we have the signal word cum. As you can see, the C-U and the abbreviation for M for the Latin word cum, which signals now is the next person, that is the bride. So we again know what to expect, and we have further information to this entry that the actual matrimony took place at another time, written here in a separate space. So we often know what to expect, and I think that's a very important information for the information scientists. We have formats, as you can see, in this case from the later 18th century, and the Age of Enlightenment took place in administration. You can see the result here. So again, we know what to expect, and the information scientist will know that he has just to cover a rather restricted dictionary for his reading targets. And you can look at these texts from a point of view of the columns so that the reading target is very clear. This goes throughout the diocese. You have seen better handwriting, not so good handwriting as in this case. But again, you have a clear picture of what to expect. This is a somewhat difficult handwriting, but as somebody pointed out, we will be very glad to have 70% of results, because as yet we have no percent. That's the difference. That's the actual difference. You have to key or to double key these index data, and if automatic processes help us along, that would be wonderful. And even if there are some entries in the end where the machine is not able to help us, doesn't really matter. Okay? So you see, again, a specific entry very clearly defined throughout the ages. That is, as you can see, middle of the 17th century. Always very clear, very easily to define the layout and define specific parts of the text. A side aspect, registers can be very nice. Again here, the image, what to expect from registers. Again, a clear target for the reading result. And that goes throughout the centuries and throughout the parishes which are in our diocese. You can see on top of the page you have the information what to expect, as in this case sponsors, which is Latin and means bridegroom, sponsor, which means bride, testes, which is witnesses, and solemnizans, which means the priest. We have even cases of very good handwriting, which, at least from an archivist's point of view, very easily feasible to have good reading results. That's late 18th century again. As you can see, that is daily administrative practice in parish offices, and priests being academic staff, they tried to make the best out of it, and you can see it here. Even before the age of bureaucratic administration in the 19th century, they invented on their own these kinds of things. Now we come to the 19th century, where things become even more precise, and here we are in the age where the then state of Bavaria ordered the parishes to have their registers along centralized formula, so to allow civil administration to have an overlook over what is going on. And again, we have formats where we know what to expect, what should be fairly good material for the information scientists. And now we are here in the central period of the 19th century, and here we have a very clear handwriting, the standardized handwriting of the 19th century. Now we'll have to be a bit quicker. Let's come to the end. What is most interesting for us at Passau, we have indexes, old indexes to all our registers. Registers are arranged chronologically. Here we have the alphabetical index to these registers, and as you can see, it's based on the surnames and will allow us to have good access to the data and should make it fairly easy for the information scientists to use that material, because again, there are targets in these registers. major problem when reading old texts is to decipher the first letter. The problem is solved in such cases. You already know it's a G or an H. That's a later index of the late 19th century. As you can see, those who produced these indexes knew they should make it easy for later people to read the text, and so we have the Latin handwriting here for surnames, and then the German script for Christian names and place names. But again, we know what to expect. As you can see when you look at this alphabetic index, not arranged totally alphabetically, but within the letter K chronologically, but the name Knon at the bottom of the page occurs several times, and so this should allow the machine to have a good reading result. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, some results. Okay. Thanks a lot.
So we have to say that it's very challenging, all the sets you have, especially for enhancement and manualization. So it's a lot of bleed through, as you can see here. So it's the opposite page that appears in the image. So we have to apply some enhancement. As you can see, it's disappeared, almost disappeared. So we can have some this manualization result, which is quite fine. Also in this case, where having a lot of bleed through here, you can see that the text exists in the binary image, and the bleed through just results to some small noises. So I think it's easy task to proceed to detect the cells and recognize information. So this is a zoom, just to see how it's a clear image here. So again, this is an example for banalization, starting from this image. So as you can see, all this information from the back side has been disappeared here. So coming to this page, you can see that it's a lot of noise here, but disappears with enhancement, filtering. This helps us to have such a black and white image, which is quite good quality in order to proceed for recognition. Another example where here is the binary result, and as well as the layout analysis. So we can see that we have detected the main text region, so it's quite easy to proceed to text line detection and recognition. This is text line detection. So these images are quite similar to transcriptorial images. Also here, these parts are classified as marginalia, and this is main text. And this is another example. This is the text line detection. Also, this is a strange case because although we have the bleed through effect here, the text is also faded, so it's a very difficult task. So have this result. It's quite good. That's it. And also this, you can see this part of the problematic area has been disappeared here. This is black and white text. That's all.
Interestingly, the images which we saw here from which were taken from FTP server. Yes. And the images you showed us looked very different, but it's the same collection. So, and what this is a very good example. If human beings are doing the selection, you get very different results. The second collection was much more challenging than the examples you showed. And so if you want to do a large project, it's always good that a machine does the selection because it's not corrupted. So take every 100th image and you get an idea of what is really in a collection.
If I may comment on that, I think in a project such as READ, it should not be the archivist's point of view of showing how difficult it is, but show how easy it might be to a certain extent, not for all records, but for many of them. And I would be perfectly glad, personally, to have a fairly good result with our indexes, and just forget the registers and forget all the reading problems with registers if the result in the indexes is fairly clear, because that would help us tremendously in our daily work. And so it should not be the first step to solve the most difficult reading problems.
Yeah, we had a little test project with the Huygens Institute, the Historical Institute of the Netherlands, and they gave us 50 images, and we did quantum-truthing and trained the HDR and so on, and the images were really challenging, but the outcome was okay, I would say. And at the end of the test project, they told us that they had taken the most difficult images without telling us. and you often see this kind of attitude at humanities scholars, that they have this special attention to challenges and to difficult things, which is okay, but it doesn't really say a lot then about the rest of the 15,000 images. And we wanted to make a test which says something about the 15,000 images and not about the 3,000 of images which are really hard and have had a lot of problems. Yeah. And that's something maybe,
Yeah, maybe if I could add something. It's not just only about difficulty and easiness of some images. You just mentioned the existence of the indexes and how important it was for you, and this is also very precious in Venice. In many of these archives, you have actually lists of meta-indexes which are giving you access to the other font, and they typically contain lists of names and list of places, and something we do in Venice, but I think it's very general, is that if you start from those, not only you can train on the handwriting, and not only it's easier because these are typically tabled, but then you get all this list of names that you're going to find back in all the other documents, which is usually what you're looking for. And so I think that was very exciting to see all the different typologies of documents, but when we start projects, it's very important that we understand also the logic, the hierarchical logic, and all the instruments that were made for accessing this document, because they could be extremely precious in a strategy which can be developed.
I found very enlightening your remarks and insights about the regularity of the information that is in the registers, which even if the image is difficult to see because the noise and so on, allow because you know what you expect to find there, you can read it, even if it is difficult. So it's the same for the machine. So in handwriting recognition, typically you have two components. One component is what we call the optical model, which is something that knows how what are the shapes of the characters. Another component is the language model, that knows how the characters are concatenated to form words, and also how the words, where do you expect the words to appear. So if you have information, you have domain knowledge about the word that you expect in each part of the register, then that can be extremely helpful. So accuracy can increase dramatically from maybe 50% accuracy to 80% by using this kind of domain knowledge. The only problem is that this kind of domain knowledge sometimes is not systematic, and then it's difficult to formalize. It's difficult to build a model based on what you know or you expect that appear in the image. So in the end, you have to trade training, automatic training with domain knowledge. So as much domain knowledge you have, and the more reliable this knowledge is, the more opportunity you have to get good results. That is by training the part of the knowledge that is not systematic.
Yeah.
This is one thing. I wanted to comment another thing. Is you have shown many examples that you have found easy to process because the columns were so straight and so on. But in particular, on the left hand side, you have plenty of examples of difficult problems because of the curvature of the border. So those columns are really challenging, even though for you does not seem difficult. For the machine becomes one of the current bottlenecks. And also because typically in the regular text in the left hand side and also in the right right end of each line, you lose the context, the linguistic context, and then you are in a worse position to recognize because you have lose the context. Yeah. And then if you lose the context and in addition there is a curvature and in addition there is a illumination problem and so on, then that becomes difficult. So the message is please scan the images well and avoid this kind of difficulties.
Yeah, you see, there are no curvatures here. We use a Zeutschel scanner and Zeutschel has a software program which eliminates curvatures during scanning. So that's not so much a problem anymore with younger scans.
So you can cut
Yeah, yeah. I wouldn't do that. Yeah, but if I may comment on one of your comments, what is important for us archivists, when preparing this presentation, I became aware I have to present, so to speak, a new kind of source typology. When talking to historians, we tell historians the contents are important, and and the contents are of that and that kind, and you might use this for this and that. And when considering this presentation, I became aware of the fact that we have to look at form, structure, distinction between various chapters, and so on, and what you pointed out as unsystematic domain knowledge. We archivists have to become aware of this fact and train ourselves to clarify that sort of domain knowledge. Because what you pointed out in your last remark, that these columns lose context, that's not true. We know what in this column is. Yeah,
this is a challenge for
Yeah, it's a cooperation between archivists and information scientists, and that's what it really is about.
Yes, thank you.